Time has come to call the meeting to order of the Beavercreek Board of Zoning Appeals. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Botla is absent. Mr. Clunan.
Here.
Mr. Archibald is also absent. Mr. Rust.
Here.
And Mr. Essman.
Here. I will accept a motion to excuse the absent members for today's meeting.
Motion to excuse.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. The motion carries. I also need a motion to approve the agenda. I think everyone's had a chance to review the agenda. Are there any questions or modifications to the agenda this evening? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Now I need a motion. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to review the minutes of the last meeting. I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes as presented from the last meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second. Is there a second? There's a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries. We have two public hearings this evening in two cases. Madam Clerk, would you begin with the first case, which I believe is V23-9?
This is case number V23-9 on an application filed by Ashley and Oswaldo Delacruz, 2571 Murwood Court, Beavercreek, Ohio, 45431, requesting a variance from Chapter 158.104A of the City of Beavercreek Zoning Code to construct an accessory structure within the front yard. The property is located on the northwest side of Murwood Court, 3 lots north of the intersection of Ruston and Drive and Murwood Court, further described as Book 1, Page 4, Parcel 118 on the Greene County Property Tax Atlas.
Thank you. Is the applicant here today?
Yep.
Would you like to tell us what you'd like? No.
Matt goes first.
Oh, really? My cheat sheet says that he goes first. That being the case, excuse me, my bad. Matt, would you mind bringing us up to date on this case, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, board members. So we have in front of us today case V23-9. Basically, it's the applicant lives, as you heard, at the end of cul-de-sac on Murwood Drive. The house that was originally there was destroyed in the 2019 tornado, and the house, I'll show you on this, was basically located pretty much right here. And so in 2020, the applicant bought this parcel and they constructed a house to the rear of the lot. Let me go ahead and, here's our lovely drive-by. So you can see the applicant's house up in the top there. So basically the applicant's lot is kind of kite-shaped, and they constructed their house basically to the far north edge of the parcel, and the original house was located here. And basically the applicant came in to basically get an application to build a shed. And so we discussed with the applicant, basically this area shaded here was pretty much where the applicant could put a shed. So if you, and this is basically where they were proposing to put their shed. If you look at this topographical map, you can see right here is basically a big swale that runs behind their house, and there's about a 10-foot drop from the highest point to this area down in here. So it drops off on both sides pretty significantly. And so if I back up to this area where they're allowed to put a shed, you can pretty much see that area basically is severely sloped. And so the applicant is asking to locate the shed in this area right here. A couple things we looked at, obviously, was topography, other potential locations. And really this is kind of, if I back up to this shot here, you can see, there's a little bit of a flat spot up here where the house was constructed, but pretty much everything just goes down this way. And even, you can't really see it very well in this picture, but more severely even to the back of the house does it slope to the west. So a lot of this slopes to the south and then to the west. So this area right here where this trailer is pretty much one of the flattest portions left on the parcel where the original house is, and that's the location where the applicant is requesting to place their shed. So after, so the applicant applied. So basically, in reviewing the applicant's request, here's another picture. This is a farther off picture. You can kind of see the general lay of the land as far as, there's a flat spot up by the house and a flat spot pretty much by this trailer. So in reviewing this, we looked at the 8 criteria. And the first criteria is that there exists a condition or circumstance related to the property that would create a practical difficulty. And basically staff found that, given the slope of the parcel, there really isn't a lot of location for them to put the shed other than, kind of where they're asking to locate it. And so staff in that regard, agreed with, felt like they met that criteria. The next criteria is at the minimum variance possible. We felt like, going back, they could potentially try to locate the shed closer to the house, but again, they run into the same grade problems that they would anywhere else. So, we do feel like this is probably the best location for that, given the terrain and the other things they have going on there with the property as far as, location of everything. So, we do feel like, based upon the grade and stuff, that they do meet this criteria. The third one is it in harmony with if it would be in harmony with the general spirit, intent, and purpose of the code. We actually didn't feel that it really did. I mean, it was the applicant's choice to build the house to the far north part of the property. So they kind of created their own condition there as far as the location. But given their location, the intent of the code is keep structures to the rear of the property. And the fact that they built their property so far to the north kind of limited that for them, which was, in some regards their choice. So we didn't feel like it met that criteria. The next condition, does granting the variance, will it not be injurious to surrounding properties or detrimental to public welfare? We do feel it meets this criteria. If I back up to one of my original pictures here, this one right here. So the yellow line and the green line basically are at this southern, or right here on the southern side, bottom of the picture, shows basically where the distances of the rear houses of the 2 adjoining parcels. So, the shed is basically to the rear of even though it is in front of this house, it is to the rear of the 2 adjoining properties. So it's not like it's necessarily even going to be, it's not down here where it potentially be in their front yards. It is significantly to the rear of those parcels. So we, in that regard, we didn't feel like it would be, injurious, there would be injurious to the surrounding properties. And we also didn't feel like it would be a deleterious change to the character of the community. Again, that parcel is at the end of a cul-de-sac. The house, sits pretty far back, and even the detached structure would be, a decent distance back on the property, even compared to the neighboring properties. The next criteria with the granting of the variance infringe upon the rights and quiet enjoyment of adjoining property owners, diminished values, and again, we didn't feel like it would, again, based upon, the distance of the structure from the front property lines and the fact that it would be still behind the neighboring properties. We did not feel that was, we did feel like that met that criteria. Was it for a compelling reason? Staff felt like it was for a compelling reason, given the topography of the lot. Really not a lot of options, given the surrounding topography of the parcel. So we did feel like it met that. And then lastly, is the granting of the variance for an economic benefit of the applicant, solely for the economic benefit. And we didn't feel like that was the case. Just again, given the topography of the land and their lot, we didn't feel like it was solely for their economic benefit. There's, it is kind of a practical difficulty there. So basically, staff felt like it did meet, adequately satisfied the criteria and is recommending approval of the variance request.
Any questions for me? No. The applicant is here today. Would you like to speak? Applicant, would you like to speak, add anything to this?
No, pretty much he said it all. Thank you.
At this point, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak at the public hearing? Anyone at all? If not, I'll close the public hearing, and we're open for discussion. Mr. Clunin, do you have any questions, comments?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can't decide if this is best for Matt or for the applicant. We'll start with you, Matt.
Okay.
Maybe to put a picture of the house back up might be helpful.
You want the aerial? Or?
Yeah, aerial's fine. I think I'm just curious about, obviously, the location of the house. I think you said it was previously where the driveway to the left ended. Was that where the house was before?
Correct.
Do you know if there was a shed on the property at any point prior?
They did have a detached, there was a detached, the house sat pretty much right here, and the detached garage sat right there. So in the old layout, technically the house, the garage, detached garage was in front of the house then as well. But yeah, they pretty much, if I can get this controlled, the house sat pretty much right there, and the garage was pretty well right there.
Okay, and I assume that there were no issues, certainly with building the house where it was decided to be built.
Yeah, no, given the it's a very unique property layout, and so yeah, we have provisions for those types of unique parcels, and yeah, they did meet our zoning criteria for that, as far as, because we basically calculated on these, we basically calculate the rear yard from this corner here coming up. So they did meet our rear yard setbacks for the house.
To the best of your recollection, was there ever any conversation about a shed or an accessory structure back at that time?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. That's all I have, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rust?
I don't have anything.
Matt, could you put up the front yard requirement on the...
Oh,
Yeah, so what I'm to understand is that everything to the right of the sort of pink rose colored area is the required front yard?
No, the rose area is the location where as far as, yeah, pretty much everything from this point of the house forward would be front yard. Because our definition of front yard is from the front property line to the nearest points of that structure. So yes, so everything to the right of that, at least south of that pink area, would be considered front yard.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I don't have anything else. Second chance around?
Nothing.
If not, what's your pleasure?
I would move to approve the variance.
I would second that.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. The variance is granted. Moving on to case number 2, which would be V23-10.
This is case number V23-10 on an application filed by Timothy Hogan, 2121 North Fairfield Road, Beavercreek, Ohio, 45431, requesting a variance from Chapter 158.104A of the City of Beavercreek zoning code to allow an accessory structure to remain within the required 10-foot side yard setback. The property is located at the southwest corner of Home Acres Avenue and North Fairfield Road, further described as Book 4, Page 7, Parcel 69 on the Greene County Property Tax Atlas.
Thank you. Matt, would you like to give us the presentation, please?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So basically, we have this case 21 as located at 2121 North Fairfield Road. Basically, it's on the corner of North Fairfield and Home Acres. Basically, here's the drive-by of the house. You can see the detached, it's the gray structure there, the detached garage that is in question is located behind the house there. And you can see the stakes with the flags is the property line. I'll have pictures of that. So here's an aerial view of basically where the pole barn, the detached structure, is in relation to the property line and the surrounding properties, as you just saw in the video. So basically, the applicant in this situation, the applicant did apply for a zoning permit and was granted a zoning permit for the detached structure to be located 10 feet from the western property line. And you can see in the picture there, those stakes show these stakes here show the property line. I think this picture, I kind of drew a yellow line just to kind of connect them a little bit, just to help visually. But those stakes are the property line. The neighboring, the owner of the neighboring property had their lot surveyed, and that's what originated this, I think, complaint. There was a complaint called in about the location of that detached structure in proximity to the property boundary. The applicant, like I said, did apply for a permit. The permit was for the shed to be, or the attached garage to be located, 10 feet from the property line. But when the neighbor apparently had the lot surveyed, it was determined that it was 10 feet or 10 inches too close. So the applicant, so they were notified of that, and the applicant has subsequently applied for a variance for that 10 inches. So, and looking at it, staff, reviewed the analysis, and basically the first criteria was there exists a condition or circumstance that would create a practical difficulty. And that one, staff felt like that there wasn't, that the applicant had the ability to build that 10 feet off. There's nothing unique about their property that would prevented them from building that 10 feet off. And so in that regard, staff felt like, they did not meet that criteria because he did have the ability, had the lot been surveyed, to adequately locate that 10 feet off the side property line. The second criteria, is it the minimum variance possible, and are there other alternatives for resolving the conflict between the applicant's plan and the zoning code? And basically, staff felt like they met that criteria. The applicant is requesting a 10-inch variance out of a 10-foot setback. And so, staff felt like, we're not in favor of asking forgiveness after the fact, but in taking that into consideration, it is a very minimal ask in regard to, what's required. And the alternatives that the applicant has, basically, if the variance request is denied, is they would have to basically deconstruct the structure, relocate it 10 inches, or, maybe work out something with the neighboring property to buy 10 inches or something like that, a property to, bring it into compliance. So given the minimum amount that they'd have to relocate that, and with what would need to be done as far as alternatives, staff felt like, really they did meet that criteria, given the circumstance. The applicant, the next criteria, is it in harmony with the general spirit and intent of the purpose of the zoning code? Again, we felt like overall it did. If I back up to this picture here, the neighboring, the applicant's detached garage does encroach 10 inches into that side yard setback, but there's there's 9 feet 2 inches that is outside, and the neighboring house there is, about 45 plus, or just maybe a little bit more feet away from that side property line. So given the distance between the structures, 10 inches is basically not even going to be recognized, because, the applicant, while yes, he is encroaching 10 inches, from a we feel like that it is in harmony with the general intent of the code, to allow spacing between structures and all that. Again, we're not in favor of asking forgiveness, but in this situation, given the alternatives, we do feel like it meets the general harmony and intent of the zoning code. The next criteria, would it be injurious to surrounding properties in the general neighborhood or detrimental to public welfare? Again, with such a minimum variance request, again, staff does not feel like it would be injurious to surrounding properties. Again, given the fact that it was such a small variance request and given the distance to the neighboring structure, we did not feel like it would be injurious. Nor did we feel like number 5, that there would be a deleterious change to the character of the community. Because honestly, anybody driving by would have no idea that that structure was encroaching 10 inches, as opposed to, whether that's 10 feet or 9 feet, 10 inches from the road is not even going to be really recognizable. We felt like it met criteria 6, that the granting of the variance would not infringe on upon the rights or quiet enjoyment of adjacent property owners. Again, it's such a minor ask. Criteria 11, would it be for a compelling reason? We did feel like that was that criteria was met, simply because, like I stated in criterion 2, the alternatives are would be pretty extreme as far as trying to relocate that entire structure. Well, the alternatives are as such that we feel like it would be a compelling reason to grant this, since it is such a minimal variance request. And then lastly, does the granting of the variance, is it solely for the economic benefit of the applicant? And we don't feel like, that is it not solely for the economic benefit of the applicant. We don't feel like it met that, because it is really for the economic benefit of the applicant, because to relocate that structure, or to acquire additional property or whatever would be, primarily for the economic benefit. Because it is possible to relocate that, or another alternative. But at the same time, like I stated, staff feels like, with the request versus what the alternatives are, staff basically recommends approval of the variance request to encroach 10 inches into that side yard setback.
Any questions for Matt at this point?
I have one. Just to confirm, there's no utility easement or anything on that side of the property? It's just the side yard setback?
Not that I'm aware of, and if there was, it would most likely be a 5-foot, and that's not a concern.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. Is the applicant here would like to address the board? Please come up and give your name and address.
Timothy Hogan, 2121 North Fairfield Road. I'm aware that it's 10 inches short, but when I looked at the house with my realtor had asked the gentleman that lived at that other address where the property line was. And if you bring the picture back up.
You want the photograph?
Yeah. He told me it was right there where that stump is, that tree sitting up there, which would have been well enough away from there. So I just banked my decision on that. He also told me at the same time that, tried to talk me out of buying the house. He said that some man owned the 2 lots on the other side of him, and he was trying to landlock that whole corner. And he said they lifted my house up off the foundation to make all the repairs they made to it. That was untrue. They didn't do that. So it seems like, he wasn't telling me the truth when we looked at it. He was talking to my realtor.
But you didn't talk to him?
No.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add?
But I found out later this gentleman's, his father was the one that owned the house and the 2 lots on the other side.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you. I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board on this particular case? As you step forward, you'll notice in the upper left-hand corner there's a little sheet of paper. After you give your name and address, we'd like you to attest to that, please. Read that and attest to it.
My name is Carolyn Bernard. I live at 4176 Waynesville, Jamestown Road, Jamestown, Ohio, 45335. I, Carolyn Bernard, affirm that the testimony I am about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Beavercreek is the whole truth to the best of my knowledge.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman and board members, I've never, ever attended anything like this, so please forgive me if I don't follow formality. I have a lot to say here. First, am I allowed to ask questions?
Why don't you ask questions of whom? You can ask questions of the board.
Okay, of the board. So case number V2310. I assume V stands for variance. 23 is the year and 10, this is only the 10th variance for this year?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, 10th variance, sir. I have a major hang-up with that. The city of Beavercreek is very, very large, and the rules on this form that he filled out in order to build this pole barn, there are 4 rules, 4, and he couldn't follow 4 rules. He did not follow one of those rules. And out of the entire population of the city of Beavercreek, only 10 people in 11 months' time of this calendar year have had to come before this board for this reason. Okay. Did everyone receive my email that I sent in?
Yes, we received a copy.
Okay, then I won't bore you with that, but I just want to point out that I feel very strongly, myself and my husband, that asking for a variance is asking for forgiveness in this case, because this gentleman, and I'm going to use his words, he banked his decision on the stump. Well, I banked my decision on spending a lot of money to have my property surveyed to make sure that I'm not encroaching on my neighbor's property and that I am meeting the rules and regulations that the Beavercreek Zoning Board have put in place. And this isn't anything new. This has been in existence for a long time. I'm not trying to cause problems. I don't know this gentleman no more than I know anyone in this room, but I am a rule follower, and I believe that everyone else should be a rule follower. And when you fill out the paperwork, in order to do something like this, you should follow the rules that are in place. You should not just go and do whatever you feel like, because as he pointed out, the very last thing, this does benefit him monetarily. He just decided to take someone's word for it. I'm also old school when you go back to whatever happened to every time you buy a property, it gets surveyed. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a realtor, but my husband and I own numerous properties in Greene County. And another reason why we feel so strongly about this is we do follow the rules. Beavercreek, Fairborn, Xenia, everywhere we own houses, we look into the rules before we do anything to any of our properties. And we feel that everyone else should do the same thing. They're not there for the heck of it. They're there for us to follow them. He also mentioned that, they're not in favor of asking forgiveness after the fact, but that's exactly what we're doing here. We're asking forgiveness after the fact because he decided to listen to his realtor and to believe that that stump was the property line. And another thing, while I'm looking at this picture, I'd like to point out, not only did he not go the 10 feet, but if you look at his driveway, which he had done after he purchased this house just this past summer, that driveway is clear over on our property. Does everyone see that blacktop there? That's way past the property line. The bottom line is, you give them an inch, they take a foot. You give them a foot, they take a yard. So what's the point in making rules if no one's going to follow the rules? So we ask that the board disapprove the variance. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to create a hardship, but you could have done a survey just like we did. We spent good money to have that survey done to know exactly where our property lines are before we did anything to our property. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to address the board? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Mr. Russ, do you have any questions?
Not at the moment.
You reserve the right to.
I do, yes.
Mr. Allen, do you have any questions?
I have a few, yeah. Matt, we'll start with you. Ms. Bernard mentioned a document, I think, of there being 4 rules or requirements, and I'm not, I guess, exactly sure. I'm assuming that's the application to build the accessory structure.
Yeah, I'm assuming that she's referring to instructions on the application. I'm not exactly sure what she's referring to.
Okay.
I mean, in our zoning code, we have, criteria for, size, location, things like that. So what those 4 things she's referring to, I'm not exactly sure. And I couldn't say that there's only 4.
Sure. Is there a requirement in order to obtain a zoning permit for this, for there to be a survey done?
No. But I will tell the board, I mean, we, as you know, we've run across this issue, and we are addressing, policy-wise, making some corrections to kind of alleviate these types of problems moving forward with, particularly with structures with permanent foundations that can't easily be relocated.
And is there, in this case, obviously the zoning permit was granted,
Yes.
and I assume that your staff went out and looked at where the intent was, or however that process is followed generally, and determined that it was in an acceptable location.
Actually, in this case, the applicant, nor the builder, whoever was responsible, did not call for a zoning inspection. So we actually did not do an inspection on this. We typically do pre-construction inspections, but given that, we're not surveyors. So, whether it's, we don't know, unless it is staked and we can do precise measurements, we look at, does it look reasonable? Because, the onus is on the property owner to know where their property boundaries are. And obviously in this case, the property owner was aired and knowing that location. But again, we're actually going to make some policy changes moving forward to help alleviate some of these kind of conflicts. I mean, fortunately for the applicant in this case, it was only 10 inches.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it, Matt.
Just one question, or one to address the issue with the driveway. Just so the board knows, the applicant can pave up to the property line. So we don't have any setback requirements for driveways. I don't, Ms. Bernard said something about the driveway going over the property line. I can't speak directly to that. Obviously in the picture there's a shadow, so it's kind of hard to tell if it is or not. So, but the applicant does have the ability to pave up to, or the property owner has the ability to pave up to the property line with a driveway.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Matt, before you go, I do have something. Could you run me back one more picture, I think, okay, one more. The drive-by picture.
You want to watch the drive-by again?
No, actually, what I'm asking, I guess, I wanted to see this side of it. Is the structure, the house and the barn, pole barn that we're looking at on a standard size lot, or is it a substandard lot?
It would be a substandard lot to what we have, to what our current zoning is. The applicant,
So it would be a non-conforming lot?
it is a non-conforming lot because it is abnormally small. It does not meet our minimum requirements for lot size, but since it's a pre-existing lot,
Right.
obviously the applicant could, and he was able to meet originally the setback requirements, and that's why he was granted the permit for the.
But the lot is
But
substandard?
the
so
lot
it's
is
small.
definitely substandard.
Okay, thank you very
Mhm.
much. Any other questions for Matt?
I have none for Matt. I have
Any
questions for
questions
the applicant, but
Question for the applicant?
yeah, sure, Mr. I'm sorry, Hogan. Could you please come up? Just briefly, I'm curious what efforts, if any, or in your own words, the process of obtaining the zoning permit to build this. I'm assuming you worked with the city to get this done. Did you consider a survey? Were you ever concerned of the location? What efforts were made to actually?
After that, in fact, I considered a survey, but they told me 8 to 9 weeks, 10 weeks out, and that would have put me into August, September, so I just based my decision on what I was told. And the driveway, that's the right-of-way where it goes out on the road, isn't that the easement?
Yeah, I'm not sure how the driveway ended up being
Not sure
constructed.
where I'm not sure where the right-of-way line is.
Yeah, where this bottom part where the pavement flares out to, looks like it's going across the neighboring property.
Right.
That actually is city property, that's in the right of way, and that is typical for drive aprons to, sometimes flare out in front of neighboring properties, but that is on city property, not the neighboring property.
It's on right away.
It is on right of way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I think that is, I think that's all I have. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any discussion among the board? What's your pleasure?
I would recommend going through the Duncan factors and just discussing them among you, get through the factors that Matt went through just before you make the decision,
Sure.
so we have it on the record.
Matt, can you pull the, your recommendations up again, please? Thank you. Are there any questions on the recommendations? Or this, I shouldn't say the staff analysis. Are there any questions on the staff analysis? Any dispute about the staff analysis?
No, I mean, I think generally speaking, just to obviously discuss for the record, I mean, obviously it is a 10-inch ask. We're certainly not, I think as a board, in favor of asking for forgiveness instead of permission. The amount of the setback being requested is important to me, especially considering the location of the neighboring house not being exactly there. This lot is somewhat odd, in my opinion. So it makes sense for this structure to be there. And in fact, when I looked at the drive-by, I don't think that the house has a garage or anything like that attached to it. So I suppose that does make sense. I mean, in terms of there being a requirement, obviously to follow directions is important, but as Matt said, that there is not a survey requirement in order to obtain this. To me, it doesn't appear that the property owner did anything particularly wrong, perhaps not relying on other people's opinion. That's maybe not something that should be done when in this situation, but regardless, we're in the position we're in right now. So those are just some general comments from me.
Mr. Rust, anything?
No, was there any other public input besides one email, any neighbors or anything like that?
We only received the one email.
Okay, gotcha.
I guess my thought on this is, that's why I asked if it's a substandard lot.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very tight lot. There's not a whole lot of places to put the garage. I mean, could he have moved it over 10 inches? Yeah, I'm sure he could have, but a mistake's a mistake, so. I personally concur with the staff's analysis on the Duncan factors.
Same here.
And I would agree as well.
So I assume that there's a motion to approve the variance as presented.
Yeah, I'll make that motion to approve the variance.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Rust?
Yes.
Mr. Clunin?
Yes.
Mr. Esmond?
Yes. Great. There being no further business before the Board of Zoning Appeals, I will adjourn the meeting.